Folks, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Thank you all for being here tonight, and thank you, my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. It's going to be a great show, and we're both looking forward to it.
Cheers and welcome, and gentlefolk, start your engines. I couldn't help it. For you NASCAR fans out there. But, thank you. And we greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And we continually pray that you all are doing okay. So thank you for coming in. On with the show.
Oh, yeah. Tonight we're going to be talking about, you got several good stories tonight, but tonight I'm going to present Blue Jacket. He was a prominent Indian fighter guy who lived back in the day. Here, I'm going to put that up in a second. But yeah, he lived back in the day just before Tecumseh. And so he was the original Indian revolutionary fighter, I should say, as the people were getting pushed out of the Ohio Valley. That's kind of where it began, is because they were getting pushed, and he was a Shawnee Indian chief, believe it or not. Now remember, he would have been in Ohio Valley, which is west of the Appalachian Mountains, and so for a long time the colonists didn't really bother him out there, because the Appalachians kind of gave that big buffer zone of from the people, coming out to settle the territory. There was treaties with the Indians that kind of, was a border there. And then, of course, the Indians, they sided up, most of them, with the British. And because they sided up with the British, everything was pretty good. Well, at least until the British were kind of losing. And we all know what happened. But then there was the French and Indian War kind of thing going on, and the French moved out.
Time? I don't know if you mentioned what time period this is.
I'm going to mention that in a second here.
Yes, because I'm like, when was he living there? Okay, yeah. I'm sorry.
Well, we already talked about these things like the French and Indian War. I'm trying to give you the run up to what all became, because the colonies were getting settled, and we've talked about the Indians on the coastline, and they were pretty much getting defeated in the late 1600s or so. They were just kind of getting wore out there. There wasn't much to it, and colonies like Virginia and Massachusetts, Delaware, those Indians were getting pushed west. And of course, their happy zones were in the Appalachian Mountains, and on the other side in that big Ohio Valley, which stretched out into Kentucky and Indiana, Tennessee area. Good hunting out there, and of course there was elk out there, and there was buffalo and beaver, and of course that was the trading commodity of the Indians at the time. So that was their livelihood. That was their money. That's which is great, because they had something to trade. But anyway, yes, everybody hit the like button. I like that. F. Kitty, Lucky Stone, Jackie J, thank you for joining me. Joanne Dancing Gypsy, thank you for being in the house tonight. Really appreciate all of you. Aaron's Energy in the house. Anyway, as we know, things got going. Chief Blue Jacket, he was born around the year, I would say 1738. He didn't really come into the records until about the 1738. He didn't come up into the records until about 1773. This is the kind of the first recorded recollection of Blue Jacket. By this time, you got to remember, he's he's getting old already. He's an old man already. He's, well, in terms of the Indians anyway, you would say he's already a chief. He's he's getting in his 30s, 40s, and he's leading. The people are starting to move across lands, and this is starting to become a problem. And of course, then we have Lord Dunmore's War. This is where it kind of kicks everything off. What happened was the Iroquois, who we've talked about many times, the Seneca, the Iroquois, they were kind of north, like in New York area, down all the way down to like Massachusetts area, in that big chunk. Well, they were getting pushed, and of course they signed treaties with the Americans. Well, in those treaties, it had resulted, the results didn't go favorably with the Shawnee, who populated the lands on the other side of the Appalachian Mountains, because the Iroquois gave their land away and said, here, you can have it, go take that territory. It wasn't so good for them. It didn't bother them because, hey, they weren't involved in all of that. Anyway, we find Blue Jacket, and he has quite the setup. As you can see by this map, there's Blue Jacket's town, the Chillicotes, Little Turtles Town, another prominent Indian chief, Traders Town. These little towns were getting set up out there. There was the Shawnee, the Miami. The Miami were situated in like around Indiana and Illinois, and then the Lenape. Of course, these tribes were kind of getting pushed too. It wasn't a good time for them when you got the American people moving west. And as they moved west into this new fertile land, problems arose. And we will find that out in a second. So the first big war that started everything off was Lord Dunmore's War. And Lord Dunmore, he was let's see, here's Lord Dunmore. We'll find Lord Dunmore in a second here. Lord Dunmore, he was Scottish, of course, and he was the governor of Virginia, and he went out there to destroy the Indians. Well, he got a big surprise, and he was defeated terribly. He was led by Blue Jacket, of course, and Little Turtle, and the result was a historical treaty of Fort Stanwix. And the Treaty of Stanwix gave over the historical hunting grounds, back from the Iroquois. And that's what they were fighting over. The Iroquois signed over lands that really weren't theirs, creating all kinds of troubles. And
can I interject something here?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so the Iroquois, and signed a treaty to say, okay, we signed off our lands. But then think about this: the white men are going, wait a minute, the Iroquois signed all this over.
Yep.
When probably they didn't mean that. Okay, I would bet you my bottom dollar that the white folks were absolutely taking advantage of the Indians, because they'd already broken some treaties. So what they did was they said the Iroquois sold us this land, and they were going all the way to the Mississippi.
Yeah.
When actually the Iroquois were going, no, that wasn't the original agreement. So understand that too.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the thing is there's brand new lands out there, and you got these people that are coming, and it's like, hey, if you're the governor Virginia, you're saying, hey, move west. We got lots of land out there. We just signed a treaty with the Indians. Take all the lands all the way up to the Ohio River, which is quite a ways away. And the Indians weren't too happy. They were saying, from what I read, and of course we got Lord Dun. This is Lord Dunmore. His name was John Murray, Earl of Dunmore.
Boo.
The fourth Earl of Dunmore. Yeah, and of course he led a huge party of people into the wilderness to defeat these Indians, and they whooped their asses. Put it blankly. He was defeated very, very bad, and the Americans went and hightailed it back, and they got a different general to come back and fight. And we are gonna put that guy's picture back up here in a second, and I'll show you. We'll start out in the beginning because did
the governor survive?
Yes, he did survive.
Boo. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so here you got Blue Jacket. He was a war chief. He was the predecessor to Tecumseh. This guy was really good war chief, and him and Tecumseh did fight, but Tecumseh was young and this guy was old by that time, So anyway, Blue Jacket was an important defender of his tribal lands. The Northwestern Wars, a predecessor of famous Tecumseh, which we're going to talk about next week. Let's see. We talked about most of this here. The legend. Oh, there was we ain't going to talk about the legend yet. Anyway, Legend of Blue Jacket. Oh yeah, we don't want to talk about him just yet. This is going to be later. He was built a strong confederation, kind of like Tecumseh did, amongst the various tribes of the Miami chief Little Turtle. Little Turtle and Tecumseh, they were one of the biggest the war chiefs that led the war parties, and only Little Turtle became more famous because he was just known more. I think he was ended up getting killed in one of those battles though, and we'll do him later. In November of the year, about 1,000 Shawnee and Miami Delaware Indians defeated a large American expedition of 2,000 soldiers. This is twice the strength of native forces. Led Northwest Territory Governor Arthur Sinclair. To this day, Sinclair's defeat, also called the Battle of Wabash, remains the single greatest victory of the Native Americans over the U.S. forces. President George Washington forced Sinclair to resign. Killed, thousands of people, or 1,000 people in that battle, leading to how Blue Jacket was this great warrior, and so was Little Turtle. When the British lost, we talked about this before with Simon Kenton, and Blue Jacket allied with the British in the Revolutionary War. When the British lost, the Shawnee lost vast lands in what is today Ohio, and a strong ally of the American settlers. In November 1791, Blue Jacket combined a confederation of Indian tribes with Miami chief Little Turtle and Wright, and defeated a massive expedition led by the Northwest Territory. Okay, so he defeated them, but they came back with more. That's the problem. You know how it is. So in describing all of this, how should I say this? From the Indian words that I read this week, they talked about how the Americans would come in and they were killing the buffalo and literally taking the tongues and the livers and leaving the rest to rot. They shot at the elk and they were killing all the elk off to the point where the elk were so skittish that it was almost impossible for an Indian to kill an elk. Little Turtle did, I mean, not Little Turtle, but Blue Jacket did try to make peace. The Shawnee were on the west side of the Ohio River, and the whites had moved all the way up to the bank on the other side of the river. Well, one day they kind of tried to make a peace, and it didn't go so well, or it did and it didn't. So what happened is They threw a big party, signed this little treaty, shook hands. They played music, and the Indians and the white man sat down and ate food and partied all day long. They roasted two cows, and and they had lots of stuff. It was just a big, huge party. Everybody was
shindig.
A shindig. Yes, that's a good way to describe it. They had this shindig. Everything was good. And as you know, the white man is kind of a shyster. They never keep their promises. So after the party was over and the white man's in his canoe and paddling across the river, the Indians find out that the white man, while they were partying, went ahead and stole their horses. And as they paddled across the river, the Indians fired shots, even though they didn't hit anybody because they were out of range. They were mad, and the treaty and the peace was broken. You know, this is how long this peace lasted, just one party. And it just tells you who's the bad guy. You know, who is the bad guy? You got the white man coming in, taking your lands because, hey, somebody said I can go settle this land. And then you got the Indians saying they're moving in. And of course, the Shawnee they didn't live in teepees. They didn't live in those other, they called them wickies. That's what they call them. It was like a birch bark hut type of thing. They called them wickies. And they did settle in towns. And what?
Wickiups.
Yeah. And they had crops and fields and grew corn in the Ohio Valley. But you know, as the settlers moved in, the Indians got mad and they'd go over there and burn the houses and kill people. It was a terrible thing. You know, you're moving in on my land. I'm going to go, burn your house and kill the people. And it was devastation. Oh, excuse me.
And also the story of them, signing a treaty and then stealing their horses, of course, that got back to the rest of the Indians who, were, a little leery of the white man to begin with. And now all the Indians are mad because they broke that treaty again.
Again, yes. It's always breaking the treaty. And that's the thing. It's oh, look, want to mention it's a pink moon tonight. Ooh, pink moon. Yep, sounds like governors today. Lies. Nothing has changed. That just proves nothing has changed. Yeah.
And here's something else is that, so the white man has a history of breaking promises. So by the time they really move west, the lies of the white man have been carried on and passed on to the other tribes. So you say, well, the Indians, they didn't have any reason to, to not trust the whites, but bananas. Since 1680 or something, they had been decimated, lied to, and treaties broken. And so, the white man has a really nasty history because of these things, even pushing into the West. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. As you can see, this is Little Turtle. And, he's wearing one of those medallions. You know how we always talk about he's wearing one of those peace medallions with Washington's head on it or something. Of course, he's got the bravery of the bear claws around his neck. We know how hard it is to kill a bear. And if you kill a bear, it means you are a brave man. Is that not true?
Yeah, Eddie.
Yeah, for sure. Anyway, after this fighting was going on, they got a guy. The Shawnees, remember, they were allied with the British, and they were fighting. And of course, the British are they can't really get into the fights. Remember, with Simon Kenton. Kenton was a big instigator. Simon Girty, I should say. Simon Girty was allied with the British, and he was supporting people like Blue Jacket and Tecumseh and Little Turtle, and giving him guns from the British and organizing him and stuff. But he couldn't really go out there, neither could the British go out there and fight for the Indians. But the Indians could put up all the fight they wanted. But they had this battle at Point Pleasant, which was kind of a big turn there. This was kind of one of the biggest defeats they had. And let's see. Okay, so they had the victory. They had the Battle of Point Pleasant in 1774, which another treaty was signed, the Treaty of Camp Charlotte. The Indians called it the Battle of Cacawana. Anyway, as we move on, in 1785, Ohio, Kentucky, and this land grant was opened up, and the people started flowing in like a river into Ohio, Kentucky area. We talked about that with Lewis Wetzel last week. If you haven't watched that show, you can hear all about Lewis Wetzel and how he was part of that, and so was his family. And when that land opened up, him and his family went into that land where he was, had to fight off Indians, and then his father and his brother were killed by them. So anyway, in 1791, Blue Jacket and Little Turtle of the Miamis, they fought against Arthur Sinclair. Now, who was Arthur Sinclair? That was this guy. We talked about him too. Arthur Sinclair. They fought battles with him. They had the Battle of Wabash. Not a good thing. Anyway, they moved on. They still needed to defeat the Indians. And who did they get next? They got this guy, Anthony Wayne, or Mad Anthony Wayne. In 1783, Anthony Wayne started to wage war, on the Indians. In 1794, he had the Battle of Fallen Timbers. And this is the one where we remember that the Indians were fighting. They weren't doing so good. They ran to the fort, and here's Simon Girty and all the British sitting in the fort, and they wouldn't open the doors. And they were thoroughly defeated. And as you can see here, the Battle of Fallen Timbers. I don't know if I got a picture of that. This is the captain. I thought I had a picture of Battle of Fallen Timbers here somewhere. Okay, the British are humbled. The Battle of Fallen Timbers. And you can see by these great maps they had in the day. And I guess the little dots here are Todd's brigade, Barber's. Basically, they surrounded the Indians and took them by surprise. Here's the Indians, and they were cornered in by the river, and then the Indians retreated up to Fort Miami, which is up here, and this is that fort that Simon Girty was in with the British. And this wasn't so good for the Indians. The Battle of Fallen Timbers, the big defeat. That was kind of the end of it for Blue Jacket fighting. Yes, Lucky says the Native Americans fought for the Americans during the Revolutionary. The Uniteds, the Tuscaroras, and the Stockbridge Muskie, the Cherokee were split fighting on both sides. Yes, a lot of these people, the natives, were split on who to fight for. Do we fight for the British or do we fight for the Americans? A lot of the Indians, though, they did side with the British because the British were like, we're not going to populate your lands. We're going to give you things. We're not going to let the people pour in, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas the Americans were like, oh, we'll just make a treaty with you, and then we'll gain some more land. We'll go fight with you, and we're going to take more land. We're just going to keep taking more land.
Now, think about this. The British were actually sending over their prisoners and such over to America. They
Yes.
they were shedding population. So, you know, on the one hand, the British are at war. Oh, we're not going to populate you, when there's actually large populations coming from the British Isles.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so what a conundrum, right?
Yeah.
Which one do you vote for when they're coming after your land one way or the other?
They are. It was for the Indian who didn't know a whole lot. It was it was very confusing, and because they didn't have the communication, that they could only go by one side of the story or the other. And what
Right.
happened? But the Indians did know. They kept saying, "Man, you know," and I read this over and over and over. The Indians were like, "Oh, we burn one house and we kill one guy, and three people take their place. You know, we burn down one cabin, and they build a whole city. You know, they build a whole town full of cabins. You know, they cut down all our trees. They cut down our forests. They plow up our fields. They burn, you know, they burn stuff. You know, I mean, they were literally taking away everything the Indians thought was valuable. I mean, but that's
They
what
would,
American people do. They see stuff and they go, "Ooh, look at that big tree. How many houses can I build out of that tree? Ooh, look, that big field. I'm going to go plow it up. Look at that creek. I'm going to dam it up, and I'm going to make the water wheel there and harness that river to make and grind my wheat flour." You know what I'm saying?
yep, the Indians saw that the white man was changing the natural cycle of things, and that they were doing things without any regard to nature, which is the Native Americans' primary, we'll say, religion. You know, wait a
Yeah.
minute, the land is sacred and you're defiling it. So, you know, it was like they were walking on their church.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it was yeah, it was a mess. Uh you know, to put it mildly. Um and either way they were losing, because they were losing more people than the Americans were, or the British were, because the armies would go in and burn their villages. And I read this over and over and over again. And we can put up that thing here. Okay, so here you got the Maumee River, and you got, you know, Indian Town, Indian Town, Indian Town, and the troops would come down, burn the town, burn their fields, move down, get to the next town, burn it down, you know, burn it down, go to the next one, burn it down, and then the Indians are stuck out there with no houses, no wikis, you know, no food. They burn their storehouses, burn their fields, shoot their, you know, buffalo and elk and what have you, and then they're stuck there out in the cold with pretty much nothing, starving to death. And they would come, and they wouldn't just kill the warriors, they'd kill the women and children. And I think, you know, they in some weird way they kind of knew that if we kill the women and children, they can't repopulate. And you know, once we kill the warriors, then we're going to be winners. And they did, and the population shrank and shrank and shrank and shrank. Whereas the
Why?
Americans,
Let me, because that was the way they did it in Europe.
yes,
That's
yes,
the way they did it in Europe. You kill everybody, you kill everything. You did like the Romans did.
yeah, genocide them all, wipe them all out except a few, and then the ones that are left, because there always seems to be more, they'll surrender and do whatever you want them to do. And that's kind of what was happening. The Indians were beaten back so badly. Um,
And
you know,
then turned into slaves.
yes, they caught them, they turned them into slaves. It was not a happy time. And you know, so we got this guy here, General Anthony Wayne. And General Anthony Wayne, who was General Anthony, in August 20th, 1794, he had the Battle of Fallen Timbers, south of Toledo, Ohio, which is today Toledo, Ohio. After that was the battle, the Indians kind of ran off, dispersed themselves, And on August 3rd, about a year later, 1795, they signed the Treaty of Greenville, giving up Ohio, or at least most of Ohio, to the United States. And again, then once they gave that up and the treaty was signed, the people poured into the Ohio Valley. And then, of course, where they're going to go from there, and they started going down into the Kentucky and, Tennessee and areas like that, because as you open up more land, more people are going to come. You give them a few years, they populate, they have children. Those children want houses. They hunt all the animals off. They keep moving west. I got to have some new land. I'm going west, right? Go west, young man. Isn't that the same?
Yep.
And here's Anthony Wayne, in his day. Anyway, lots of things going on with these people. I mean, can you imagine fighting out there and you're marching and horses and guys, long rifles and Indian arrows flying all over? I'm just giving you a little idea of that. Well, in 1805, eventually, under there was another treaty in 1805 signed. It was called the Treaty of Fort Industry. Go figure, Fort Industry. And this gave rise to the slow rise to Tecumseh. Tecumseh was, as Blue Jacket was kind of getting old, Tecumseh was on the rise. Now, there's a great story with Tecumseh and how he united all the Indians. And we're not going to talk about that this week. You got to stick around next week when we find out that Tecumseh was a seer of the future. And he foreseen everything from a giant earthquake to his own death. Kind of interesting that will be. Well, here we go. Let's see what else we got on the docket here. Blue Jacket, I guess he was a straightforward guy. He just wanted to help his people. And who wouldn't want to help his people? You know what I'm saying?
Right, exactly. And he went to great lengths too.
Yes, he did. But he was. I think he probably seen the future, but he was going to fight to the very end. And why not? I mean, if you kind of knew what was going on, you're like, I'm just going to have to keep moving and moving and moving. But we're going to talk about something else that happened to this poor guy. And let's see if we can get this one right. Okay. It's the last one. Curious legend around Blue Jacket. After his death, he had been fact. Okay, so little is known about Blue Jacket, but a curious legend grew up around Blue Jacket many years after his death, that he had been, in fact, a white boy kidnapped and adopted by the Shawnee during the Revolutionary War, which happened a lot, people. They would find children after they burned the houses down and killed the parents, and they would, try to adopt them into the tribe to, repopulate themselves. They would go through, all kinds of tests and trials, and eventually they would become, warriors, and they would become full-fledged Indians, just as well and trusted as any other Indian in the
tribe. And remember too, if the Indians were attacking, a lot of times, they would say, "Run, children, run into the woods and hide."
Yep.
So then the parents were killed, and some of these children, were left alone in the woods. So that you say, well, where did the kids come from? Well, think about some of the movies you saw back in the day. Run, children, run, hide in the woods, or hide, So there you go. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah. Okay. So this is the legend that happened. It held that Blue Jacket, in fact, was you can't make this stuff up. Marmaduke Van Swearington, of all people. Marmaduke, you get it? Marmaduke, the cartoon.
Yeah, the big dog.
Yeah, Marmaduke Van Swearington, a young white man who later chose to stay with the Shawnee, just like we were talking about, the kids that get kidnapped. The legend took hold in 1877. I'm not not messing up those numbers either. 1877. So this is 100 years after, we got to know that, or better, after he first came on the scene, by a biographer, and grew into detail and grandiosity. Even after major biographer in the late 1960s, Alan Alan Eckert wrote a legend as truth. And I listened to the audiobook on that this week, and it's really interesting. It really tells a lot about.
We lost your audio. I think he froze. I'm not sure if he's, can we still see his face, but we don't hear him.
Okay, am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody.
That's all right. It was like froze.
Yeah, it does that every now and then. I don't know why, and I don't know how to fix it. I think it's just the internet connection.
Yep.
So the thing is this Alan Eckert wrote this a book, and I listened. It's on audiobook on YouTube. It's really good to listen to. Man, the guy does a really good job reading it, and it's very interesting. But it's kind of fiction in the fact that it talks about this Al Swearington guy, Marmaduke guy, and so it goes on. And wrote it as legend as truth. You know how it is. You write it down, you make a book about it, and it seems so true in the book that people start believing that it's actually, fact. And I think a lot of our history is wrote that way. And people now, hundreds of years later, can't tell the difference between what somebody wrote as fiction or truth. You know what I mean?
Right. They're changing things now, even in my lifetime.
Well, exactly. Like I said, if all the books got destroyed and the only book that was left was Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, they would be like, oh, man, back in the day, they had a magic school and this guy, people flew on brooms. Oh, my gosh, and or if it was Lord of the Rings, there was orcs and there was, oh my gosh, it'd be, and there was Middle Earth. Where is Middle Earth located? People would be searching for it like Atlantis. You know what I'm saying? It would be crazy because they would have this book from 2,000 years ago, and they'd be like, where is Middle Earth? I don't know where it is.
But when you bring that up, there are people that that Jules Verne wrote the Journey to the Center of the Earth, and people are still fascinated by that. There is a place to be able to get to the inner Earth. So after thousands of years of legends, there are still people to this day that are fascinated with the how to get to the inner Earth. So anyway.
Wow. Yeah. Well, anyway, here it goes. Okay. So then there was a big thing about this. Was he or wasn't he? An Indian? Was he really a Shawnee? Or was he a white man? They did a bunch of DNA testing on his. Historians on his descendants, a Blue Jacket and Marmaduke Van Swearington, to disprove the legend and prove that Blue Jacket was indeed a full-blooded Shawnee. So like I said, this goes on and on and on. Blue Jacket wasn't a white man, DNA suggests. Oh, geez, you think, right? And I can't blow it up anymore. Family wants him recorded as an Indian. Go figure. I mean, I could understand some of that, but then again, I look at it and think, silly people. I mean, so what? He stood for the tribe. He was the chief. I would say, regardless of DNA testing or not, I would say, well, he's as close to an Indian as you're going to get either way, right?
And he was a good chief. So they're trying to discredit the man, regardless of his bloodline. You know, they accepted him and made him their chief. So it's like, oh well, you know, we can't let this go. We're going to have to prove that, you know, he was a white man, and these Indians, you know, they couldn't have done it on their own. They had to have a white man do it. And oh my God, you know, they've got to do, you know, would they do that to a white man?
Yeah.
You know, they got to do it to an Indian to disprove it and go through all these things. But to the legend of a white man, well, you know, it's, you know, well,
I know. But anyhow,
and the amount and think about where somebody's brain has to be in order to go through all this trouble. You know, I mean, you couldn't leave it alone. Well, whether it was a legend or not, was he a chief? Yes. Did he do great things? Yes. Was he in these battles? Yes. So what does anything else matter?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Aaron's energy.
Stupid white Americans, I swear.
Quite the story here. Yeah, I would love to have you on. Just send me an email. You could be you can join with us. I would love to have an input on any of this stuff, right? Wouldn't you?
Yep. We're always open.
Yeah, doors always open. You send me an email, I'll send you a link. Sounds great. Anyway, would love to have you on the show, have you tell your story. That's what it's all about. It's all about, you know, what recollections we have, because, you know, if you don't tell your story now, it may be forgotten. We don't want to have everything forgotten. At least
it will be forgotten, you know, because they're making every effort, especially these last 15 to 20 years. They're making every effort they can to dissolve our history into what they want to make it. It's atrocious. Tearing down statues and doing this and, you know, painting over things and just, you know, it's just wrong.
Yes, so wrong. You know, remember, this is Chief Little Turtle. Let's see here. Chief Little Turtle. He was from 1752 to 1812. Mi Shikenokwa, chief of the Miami Indians, teacher of his people, friend of the United States. His endeavors towards peace should have served as an inspiration for future generations. This plot of ground, the last resting place of the Chief Little Turtle, is dedicated to the children of America and made a public park in 1959 through the generosity of some lady, Eleanor Schmelzy, and Mary Ann Catherine Schmelzy, under the auspices of the Allen County Fort Wayne Historical Society. Again, Fort Wayne, named for Mad Dog
Indiana,
Wayne.
right?
Yeah. You know, so like I said, there tons of towns in Ohio are named after people like, you know, Simon Girty, Simon Kenton, Mad Dog Wayne. We go by these names. We just don't even know our own history. How many people could you go to Wayne, Indiana, and wonder, why is it named Wayne, Indiana? Huh? They would just say, I don't know. I just live here.
And also in Ohio, there's a Wayne County.
Yes, Wayne County. Major Anthony Wayne. There's the guy. Because he chased the Indians out. You know, he made it safe for the white man to live. So they could destroy the land and plow up and till things and kill all the animals. I mean, how many elk are still left in Ohio? You know, or how many buffalo are still left in Ohio? Oh, they wiped them out. Like by the 1812, they were all gone. All the buffalo were gone east of the Mississippi. All wiped out. That's how fast it went. And then they moved across the white man moved across the river, and by the 1880s, the buffalo were pretty much wiped out again. And killed, you know, millions and millions and millions on the east side of the west side of, you know, I mean, you know, the amount is unimaginable, and who knows how many millions.
Yeah, there was probably at least 1 million buffalo on this side of the Mississippi.
Oh, I would say if there's 30 million buffalo or 40 million buffalo on the other side of the river, there was probably at least 10 million on this side of the river. Because,
Possibly. Yep.
I mean, because that's what the Indians were living off of. Most of the Indians were living on the east side of the Mississippi River until the horse came along. And in the 1700s, the early 1700s is when they got their horses. So the Indians were all living on the east side of the river. So they didn't touch the buffalo much on the west bank of the Mississippi. Lucky says
because they couldn't.
Yeah. So as of 2024, Ohio had 986 bison. So, but the thing is, were the original bison for there was the east side. There were different bison. There was the plains bison, and then there was the eastern bison, which were a different breed of. They were the same, but they were built differently. So look that one up. I didn't get to look that one up today, but it is a very interesting. What?
I would be curious too if the buffalo that they have in Ohio is in any way from the original herd.
Yeah, I highly doubt that because, like I said, I think they were pretty much extinct on the east side of the Ohio in the early 1800s.
Yeah,
they were all wiped out.
I would agree, but that's what I mean. My curiosity would be: is there any way that they and how could they prove it?
I think they called them a woodland bison or something like that. The wild bison have not been spotted east of the Mississippi since 1830. There you go. 1830. There you go. Well, they were all gone. Isn't it amazing? And then, of course, by 1880, another 40, 50 years from then, all the millions of bison on the other side of the river were wiped out too. Go figure.
Look what the white man can do. Yeehaw.
Yeah, they can wipe them all out. They can cut down all the trees.
They can genocide a nation.
Yeah, literally. That's what they do. Here's Blue Jackets Town. Here lived the famous Shawnee chief who led the Seven Nations in their defeat at Fallen Timbers. He later was a prominent in the making of the famous Treaty of Greenville. And we talked about the Treaty of Greenville, which kind of was in, I don't know, I don't remember which year that was. Exactly. Oh, Treaty of Greenville, August 3rd, 1795. But that wouldn't be the only treaty because, the white man keeps breaking their promises and stuff like that. So I encourage you all to go out, do your own study. Here's these books: The Warrior of the Shawnees, Blue Jacket, War Chief of the Shawnees. This Alan Eckert, this is the guy who wrote that book, but it's about the Marduk Van Swearington. I mean, it's good, but it kind of goes about in the wrong way. It tells it that he was this Marduk guy. So I don't know, but it does have a lot of information about the Shawnee Indians and how they did things. I would suggest you know what? I wish somebody would write a book about the Shawnee Indians in the correct way without putting in the fake Marduk Swearington. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, but all in all, it's on YouTube. You can listen to it. I did. The guy's got it like 6 or 7 parts. Let's see. Lucky says he's probably looking all this up for us. Thank you very much. There were probably about 2 to 4 million bison east of the Mississippi River. Opportunities for a restoration of the wild plains bison east of the Mississippi are slim to impossible. Yeah, because there's too many people east of the Mississippi, because that's where most people live nowadays. And there's Pearl Jones. Welcome.
Hey, Miss Pearl, continued prayers for you.
Yes. So anyway, like I said, it's quite quite the thing out there with the Indians, and they, as I read about all this stuff, it's kind of sad in a way because here you are living in the woodlands, you got buffalo, elk, you got deer, you got all these things, beautiful lands, and you get people coming in and they're chopping down your trees, burning your fields. You're living in a little wiki made of bark and bent willow branches or something,
Yeah.
and they burn it down, and then they cut down all your trees and build this big log cabin instead. They cut them down, they build a fort, and of course, you want the stuff that they have, and so you go and you trade with them, and because you're thinking, I want to have what they got. And I think we have a lesson to learn by all of this. And you know what that lesson is? Are you picking up what I'm throwing down?
Leave things alone and learn how to live with Mother Nature. That's one thing.
Yeah.
What are you throwing down?
Well, the thing is don't give up what you got for what somebody else has, because in the end, what you might have may be way better than what they got. And that's what the Indians didn't realize. They were like, hey, I want blankets, I want clothing, I want metal products, I want a gun, I want I got to have all that stuff. That's wonderful things. I can go out and, protect myself and defeat my enemies. And, oh, this is wonderful technology. But then instead, they didn't realize that they're fighting themselves. They are out there defeating their enemies, who were the other Indians. And then after they got all these guns and they got the weapons and the clothes and the trinkets and the medals and all of these things, well, they got taken advantage of. It's like, hey, we control all. You may have a gun, but we control all the black powder and all the bullets and all the lead, and we control. You see how that works?
Yeah, you might have a gun, but it doesn't do any good if you don't have anything to go in it.
Yeah, and then of course, well, now we're going to take your land, and you can fight all you want, but there's more of us and less of you. And when we run low on people because you wiped out one of our armies, we'll bring another one back that has twice as many people, and then we'll really wipe you out. I swear, if I was an Indian, I'd been thinking about that too, and be like, hey, we defeated them, but now they're going to come back tenfold. This isn't good. What do we do?
Yeah, and they had no concept of what was on the other side of the ocean. They had no concept that there were countries, full of people that were begging to go to the new land, and they did in droves. But and they're still coming, So the land of opportunity, home of the free and the land of the brave, But and that's got a different look these days. But to the folks moving west, you watch those old westerns where they open up a territory, and there's all these wagons and people on horses and stuff, and they all got a stake. Literally, they got a stake in this, because if they can find a piece of property and put their stake in it and stake a claim, then that belongs to them. Then they get to homestead it, and so all these people that that when they came across, there was already some crowding going on. There were already people who had staked claims for large portions of land. So they just couldn't come in and everything wasn't just open. They couldn't just find a plot of land and homestead. They could sharecrop, but they couldn't have their own, because it was already occupied by large families, corporations, and stuff like that. So people say, well, how come they wanted to move west so bad? Because the east had already started to be possessed by people, so they had to move west, because they really couldn't buy any land or anything over here because it was already being managed. So people say, well, go west, because now we can stake our own claim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And somebody said, hey, if you just go west, there's some free land out there, and you can have as big a farm as you want. I'd be heading that way too. I'd be like,
Yep. So the Native American had no idea of what was coming, in that the American dream, or those folks, immigrants coming over, quote, the American dream was to be able to own property and be self-sustainable and all these good stuff. And where the Native American, they were like, what?
Mhm.
So there was this inner drive for the people who came over, and they saw the Native Americans not as a partner, but as an absolute enemy.
Yeah.
Before they ever met them, they were the enemy.
Well, and I think that they didn't do it like as I read the last bunch of days, was that they didn't put a good impression on them either. When they were saying they were flooding into their lands, and they were killing all the buffalo off, and they were killing the elk so fast, and chasing them off, and the elk were so skittish they couldn't even shoot them either. And I mean, and then they were wasting the buffalo. They would shoot one and take out the tongue and the liver and leave the rest for the wolves. And that would make me mad. I'd be like, hey, I mean, there's a lot of them, but hey, I gotta eat too. And when I want a buffalo, I go out and kill it. I take the hide, I take the bones, I take the innards, I use pretty much all the pieces of it for something. And you go out there and shoot it and take the tongue and the liver and call it good and move on. I'd be mad. And I mean, and you're wasting all the meat. You're wasting all the meat.
And I wonder what it was about the tongue and the liver.
Well, the tongue was the easiest part to cut. You cut it out. You ever have tongue? It's really good.
Yeah, I've had beef tongue.
Yeah, and tongue is really good. And the liver provides you with vitamin C, believe it or not. Did you know that?
I think.
Yeah. So you can get your vitamin C from eating the liver. And there's also minerals. That's because minerals and stuff in that too. So that's one of those important parts so you cut that out. And liver's pretty big, and they would eat that thing. That would be like the delicacy of the day. Eat all the liver you want, because that liver is gonna be, it's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, and also, I'm sitting here thinking to myself that scurvy, which means you have to have vitamin C. So if you didn't get enough vitamin C, even out on the plains, that scurvy was not a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. And where are you going to get it? You can't really go out there and start picking some apples off the tree yet, because Johnny Appleseed
or oranges or anything like that, right?
Exactly. Okay, so I guess that's about it for Blue Jacket. There was a lot of information, but not a lot of information. I think because it was so long ago, and that he didn't really get his story told until he was an older gentleman. And I think he lived about 70 years of age or so. So,
yeah, that's about right.
Yeah. And so he put in a good long life, but like I said, he was the kind of the mentor to Tecumseh. And Tecumseh came along after him, and they actually fought in wars together. So, but Tecumseh carried the torch later on. Lucky did his research again for us. Thank you, Lucky. Bison liver is high in vitamins A, D3, and K2, specifically the rare forms of MK4 and MK7, B12, and iron. There you go. I thought there was vitamin C in that too, but who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. But I thought there was vitamin C in there. But anyway, there's the vitamins A, D3, K2, and you need D3 to live. That's a hard one to get.
Yeah,
rare forms of MK4.
And in my old age at 71 and a half, I just received another um, from the pharmacy vitamin D because of kidney issues and my heart. So if when my vitamin D level drops, doctors automatically go, "Oh, you got to, we got to boost it back up." So I didn't know how important vitamin D was. It's real important.
Okay, Lucky has clarified me. I say I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I am wrong. Buffalo liver contains no vitamin C. However, buffalo liver is rich in essential vitamins and minerals, including vitamin B12, iron, folic acid, and copper. So there you go. So they even the Indians and the white man knew that by eating liver, that would gain you health. It's like playing one of those video games where you get to the little box and it gives you health and you're well again, because if you don't have, like you're saying, if you don't have those vitamins and minerals, you go downhill, right?
Yeah, you're going to have bone deficiencies and things, and it's just not going to be good. And also other organs failing. I mean, people died of all kinds of stuff back in the day, and I could see where if they didn't get the proper vitamins, they'd have been very deficient.
Yeah, iron is also very important. Yeah, because how would if you're living out in the woods, where would you get your iron from?
Lick a rusty nail.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. They didn't have no nails or whatever. So
Right.
how are you getting so that anyway. Lucky says most mammals do produce their own vitamin C except for humans and a few rodents. So there you go. We don't produce our own vitamin C. That's why we got to have it.
We're just rodents on this.
Yeah, we are. Talk about being kind of deficient in everything, huh?
And we chew everything up as we go.
Oh, I know. We're terrible. We are terrible. Why is
And
that?
but folks these days, there has been this push since my hippie days to go back to the land. And people are still in that, oh my, we got to be organic. Well, we were organic for a long time, and until we moved into the GMO era, and the fertilizer era. I was talking with somebody locally here about a particular field. And I said, every single year they planted in cotton. And I said, back in the day, they were, they learned 100 years ago to rotate the crops. And I said, I've never seen that field, the crop rotated. And it was all like, yeah, well, they spend so much money and they bring in great big piles in dump trucks, great big piles of minerals that they spread back over the land every year because the crops deplete them. Yep. So instead of doing what nature said, they're fooling it all the time. All the farmers are doing this. You see, great big piles of minerals of some kind or lime or whatever it is. So, they're still, mistreating the land, even in my opinion, even worse, because they don't even rotate crops anymore. But anyway.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. They know that if they depleted those minerals out of there, the crop won't grow. So they bring in minerals to feed the land. Why don't you just rotate your crops? You do the same thing if you just rotated your crops.
And there are crops that you can grow that will help regenerate the land, and sometimes just leaving it fallow and just letting nature take it over, versus planting anything. So, but to that point though, it's amazing that, there are some folks that just take it for granted that farmers are doing things right these days.
Well, and these days, there's less farmers and there's more corporations. And the farmers that are farming, they're trying to make the biggest buck they can possibly make. And I don't blame them because, so you're planting cotton. That's your big crop. That makes you the most money. You buy all the big machinery to pick cotton. Well, if you rotated your crop to say beans, now you got to go buy a combine that does beans. And then you got to have, bean planters and you got to have all these different. So now you got to have a whole different farm setup one year. Then the next year, you see where I'm going with it? Millions of
Oh, yeah.
dollars for equipment. And so you're thinking, well, is it cheaper just to bring in the minerals? Of course it is.
Well,
The
and
minerals are
so,
real cheap.
and back when I worked on a farm, it was that one farmer grew cotton, so he had a cotton combine. Another farmer grew corn, so he had a corn combine. So they traded,
Yep.
or they rented, or they leased the guy. The guy says, for so much an acre, I'll come combine it for you. And the farmer goes, come on, and off they go. So my friend that that I lived on his farm, he had a combine, and he made a decent salary in the fall combining other people's farms. But anyway, but to that point, nowadays, to find this is our area, to find a field of corn anymore is like, what? And or a field of beans, but something else. And just down the road for me is a huge farm, and they grow at least 2 crops a year. And what they're doing is they are doing it with plastic, and they're putting in water lines down each row.
Wow.
And so that they get all the nutrients that is pumped into the water system. So they're not actually taking it out of the land. So actually the land is just holding it.
Yeah.
But so and then the beds are covered with plastic, but they recycle the plastic. They reuse as much of the water lines as possible. You go by and see where they pulled it up out of the rows, and then they hire a bunch of Mexicans to do it, by the way. So there is that. But they grow a bunch of different vegetables. They grow broccoli and different types of crops like that. And they're not necessarily GMO, but they are absolutely, it's almost like it's hydroponic outside.
Yep. Yeah, I've seen those places like that. And it's kind of neat how it's done, but you got to wonder how much plastic is getting into the plants and the ground nowadays. They say that those plastic fibers are breaking off. It's like, oh boy. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, Lucky says there are some crops you grow together and they help each other. The Iroquois and the Cherokee called the corn, beans, and squash the 3 sisters because they nurture each other. So good. Thank you, Lucky.
The beans grew up the corn stalk. Yep.
So anyway, enough of my shindig. We got your stuff here. We got a good story for you tonight, people.
My shindig.
I'm excited to hear this one.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
A raccoon story?
Yes. We haven't had a raccoon story in a long time. It's always fox and coyote and raven, or some or man eaters and all of this stuff. When was the last raccoon story we had? Come on now.
Oh, it has been a while. Hang on.
So anyway, I hope everybody enjoyed that little bit I had about Blue Jacket. If you want to find out more information about Blue Jacket, get on the internet, do your own research. It's a great rabbit hole to travel down. You might learn something. Thank you all for that. Listening to me tonight.
And also, in going down the rabbit hole of one, you find other characters along the way.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like next week, we're going to talk about Tecumseh. Because, like I said, Tecumseh was the predecessor to Blue Jacket, and I'm sure those two sat down at a fire somewhere and smoked the pipe together and had some words along the way. Right?
Probably. And it might not have been words. It might just have been sign language too. But interesting.
Well, they were both Shawnee Indians, so I'm sure they spoke the same language.
Yeah.
So, and Aaron's energy. I'll tell you, I wrote down the name of that, and I'm going to look up Chief Loon and Loon's Foot, and I'm going to look up Chief Red Bonnet and see if I can find a story from them and maybe present that right here. Wouldn't that be interesting, eh? That's what I'm thinking. So there you go. Oop. There. No, there we go. Okay. You should be all set. Are you ready? I got it up. It's good to
Yeah,
go.
let me get a swig of drink.
Yep, get the swig. And thank you, everybody, for your comments in the chat section. I love reading all the good stuff. And thank you, Lucky, for finding all those little tidbits, that, especially when I'm wrong. But yes, I don't like to give out information that I don't know. But hey, I'm just guessing a lot of times on some of that stuff. Anyway, there you go.
And by the way, the moon does not look pink from here, but it is absolutely a full moon tonight. So if y'all have a chance, you should go out and take a look at it, because it's nice and round. But anyway, so we got our story tonight, and I didn't check to see how long it is. And our good friend, loves to build up a story, and I don't know if it's any good or not until we read it, okay? Just to mess with our host a little bit. So this is a raccoon story, and we are still on the Seneca Indian myths that we have been reading now for several months. And we are getting to the end of the book, I must say, so we'll see how many more stories we got left in here over the next month or so. A raccoon story. An uncle and nephew lived together. One day, when the nephew was in the woods hunting, a handsome young woman came to the cabin. She had a basket full of bread on her shoulders. Unstrapping the basket and putting it down in front of the old man, she said, "Here is marriage bread. My father and mother have sent me here to marry your nephew." "Very well," said the uncle. When the young man came home, his uncle said, "You are married now." "I am glad," said the nephew. After this, the young woman cooked and the men hunted. Each day, the nephew returned with a heavy load of game. One day, while hunting, he came to a tree in which there was a large hole, and in the hole was a litter of coons. He climbed the tree and threw one coon after another onto the ground. All at once he heard a woman say, come down, you are tired." Then she ran off through the forest. When the young man went home, he told what had happened. His wife laughed, but said nothing. Not long after, when packing up his game ready to start for home, a woman came up behind him, took him by the arm, and led him to a log. They sat down. She pulled his head onto her lap and began to look in his hair. The man was soon asleep. The woman put him in a basket, put the basket on her head, and went to an island in the middle of a lake. Then she took the man out of the basket and asked, "Do you know this place?" "I know it. This is where my uncle and I used to fish." And giving a spring into the water, the man became a bass and escaped. When he went home, he told his wife what had happened. She laughed and said nothing. The man was so frightened that he stayed at home for several days. Then the feeling wore away and he started off to hunt. As he was packing up his game to go home, a woman said, right there at his side, "Stop. Wait a while. You must be tired." They sat down on a log. She drew his head to her lap and began looking in his hair. He was soon asleep. Putting him into a basket, the woman carried him to a great ledge of rocks where there was only a foothold. Then, taking him out of the basket, she asked, "Do you know this place?" I will tell you soon, said the man, looking around. That minute, the woman disappeared. Soon he heard someone say, I will fish a while. A line dropped into the water below, and a man began singing and pulling up fish. At last he said, I have enough. I'll rest and have something to eat. This is what we people eat when we are among the rocks. And he took a baked squash out of his basket. The young man said to the rocks, Stand back a little so that I can string my bow. The rocks stood back. He strung his bow and saying, Now boast again. He shot the fisherman. He heard a loud noise and looking in the direction it came from, saw an enormous bat coming toward him. The bat passed a little to one side. The young man took a hemlock leaf from his pocket and dropping it over the rocks, sang, A tree must grow from this hemlock leaf. A tree must grow from this hemlock leaf. Soon a tree came in sight. Then the man talked to the tree, said, Come near and have many limbs. As the tree came to a level with the place on the rocks where the young man was sitting, it stopped growing. He had seen that along the narrow shelf of rocks there were many men. He called to the nearest one to tell all to come, and they could escape. They crept up, one after another, then went down on the tree. When all had reached the ground, the young man took a strawberry leaf from his pocket, and dropping it said, Grow and give berries. Then he sang, Ripen berries, ripen berries. The vines grew, were covered with blossoms. The blossoms became berries, and the berries ripened. When the men had eaten as many berries as they wanted, the young man picked a leaf from the vines, put it in his pockets, and the vines and berries disappeared. Then he said to the men, Let us go to our wife, meaning the woman who had captured them. When they had traveled some distance, the young man killed an elk. Taking the hide, he cut it into strings and made a baby board, but one large enough for a grown person. After a while, they saw a house, and in front of it a woman pounding something. When she saw them, she began to scold, and holding up the pounder, was going to strike them. The young man said, Let the pounder stop right there. The pounder stopped in the air, half raised. They seized the woman, strapped her to the board, and saying, You must be cold. They set the board up in front of the fire. Just then, the young man's wife came, and finding that they were about to roast the woman, she was angry. She freed her and said, You are free now, and I will go home. She went to the lake and called on bloodsuckers to stretch across the water. They came, and she walked over them. Each man went his own way. When the young man got home, his wife was there. The nephew and uncle were raccoons. The end.
Ah, there we go. There we go. All right. Well, that was a kind of a short one.
Yeah, not too long. I got another one pulled up, which is the next one in line, and it's called The Moose Woman.
Okay, well, just let me give me a second, and we'll have that set up for it.
Give me a second. Let me take another swig, and it'll be a twofer night.
And like Lucky said, he says, "Oh, and then they chopped off their heads." We miss. See, that's the thing about the raccoon story. We get to chop it off.
There were no heads chopped.
Nope, that's right. No heads
He
chopped.
shot the fisherman, which doesn't make sense, but okay.
Yeah, that's all right. Okay, only one got chopped. Okay, the moose woman, huh? All righty,
Yeah.
here we go. And there you go. You're on.
All right, let me get set here just a second. And Duggar's trying to bark away. This next story is called The Moose Woman. A young man who lived alone with his mother decided that he would go to the forest and hunt, that he would stay away a year, collect and dry meat, and at the end of the year, come home. He started, and after going a long distance, came to a region where he thought there would be plenty of game. He built a bark house and began housekeeping. Each morning he made a fire, cooked his breakfast, and ate it, and then went out to hunt. He stayed away all day, and when he came home at night, he was often so tired that he lay down without eating. He soon had a large quantity of meat, but many times he was hungry. One day, when coming back from a long tramp, he saw smoke rising from the smoke hole in his cabin. He was frightened, for he was sure the cabin was on fire. He ran as fast as he could, thinking he might save some of the meat that he had dried. On going into the cabin, he was surprised to see a fire in the fireplace and his kettle hanging on the cook in such a way as to keep its contents hot. He wondered who had come to cook for him. In all the time he had lived in the forest, he had not found a cabin nor seen a human being. He saw that the deer he had brought home the evening before was dressed and hung up to dry. That wood had been brought in and piled up near the fire. That everything had been put in order and acorn bread made. On the way home, he had thought that he would lie down as soon as he got to the cabin, but now he was glad to find a warm meal awaiting him. He sat down and ate, thinking, the person who got this ready will soon come. But no one came. The next morning, he went into the forest to hunt. When on the way home, he looked to see if smoke was coming out of his cabin. It was, and again food was ready. Near the fire, he found a partly finished braid. Then he knew that his unknown friend was a woman. She had put a number of deer skins to soak to make a buckskin. He thought how kind she is and made up his mind to see her, even if he had to stop hunting. In the morning, he started off as usual, but only went to a place in the woods where he could watch the cabin. Soon he saw smoke rising from the cabin. And creeping back cautiously, he waited around till a woman came out for wood. When she went in, he followed quickly. He saw that the woman was young and good looking, and he said to her, "You have been kind to me. I am thankful." She said, "I knew that you were often hungry, and I came to see if you would let me be your wife." The young man was so glad that the woman was willing to stay. After that, she tanned deer skins, dried meat, cooked for him, and worked hard every day. She was good-natured and kind, and her husband loved her. Before the end of a year, a boy was born, and then they were perfectly happy. When the time came that the man had set to go back to his mother, his wife said, "I know your promise to your mother. The time has come for you to go. I have everything ready. I have made moccasins for you and for your mother, and there is plenty of meat. How can I carry the meat? Asked the man. She lives a long way off. You have only to select the meat you want. I know how you can carry it. She knew how he came to the forest and that he could reach his village much quicker by going in a canoe down the river. Early the next morning, she asked him to go to the river with her. It was not far from the cabin. When they came to the bank, she took a tiny canoe from her bosom. Her husband wondered what she was going to do with such a little plaything. Take hold of one end of this, said the woman, and pull away from me. He did, and the little canoe stretched and stretched till it was very long and wide. They placed it at the edge of the water. Then he brought basketful after basketful of meat from the cabin and packed it away in the canoe. When the canoe was well loaded, the woman gave her husband a package and said, I want you to put on a new pair of moccasins each morning and throw away the old ones. Then she cautioned him not to forget her, said, when people see what a good hunter you are, many women will want to marry you, but you must be true to me. If you are not, you will never see me again. The man promised to come back in the fall, and they parted. When he reached home, news spread that such a woman's son had returned from a year's hunting and had brought back a great deal of meat. People came to see him to look at the meat. He told no one, not even his mother, that he was married. So many young girls asked for him. His mother had a nice-looking girl whom she liked, and she urged her son to marry her, but he refused. After a while, he said to his mother, I am going to the woods again. I have a cabin there. Sometime you will know why I don't marry the girl you have chosen for me. When he reached the river, he shook the little canoe as his wife had told him to do. It stretched out, but was not as large as before, for he had no meat to carry. He sat in the canoe and started up the river. When near his cabin, he saw his wife waiting for him and his little boy running around at play. The husband and wife were very happy again. Another year went by, and a second boy was born to them. Again, the woman got her husband ready to carry meat to his mother. She seemed to know that this time he wouldn't come back. In parting, she said to him, if you marry another woman, you will never see me again. But if you love me and the children, you will be true to us and come back. If you are not true, your new wife will soon be sucking her moccasins from hunger, for you will lose your power of killing game. As before, the man's fame as a hunter brought many good-looking girls to ask for him. Again, his mother urged him to marry, but he refused and was ready to start for his cabin in the forest when a beautiful girl appeared in the village and came to his mother's house. Her mother urged him to marry the girl, and he yielded. The wife in the forest knew what had happened and said to her children, my children, we must go away from here. Your father doesn't love us. The children were full of play and fun, but they were troubled by their mother's tears, for the poor woman was always crying. After the man had taken a second wife, the meat in his mother's house began to fall away strangely. He could almost see it disappear. Though there was a good supply when the woman came, in a few days, but little was left. He went hunting, but couldn't kill anything, not even a rabbit. He went day after day, always the same luck, but his power was gone. One day, when the man came home, he found his wife sucking her moccasins. She was so hungry. He cried and sobbed. This is my punishment, thought he. She warned me that this would happen if I were untrue to her. Right away, he decided to go to his first wife and her children and never leave them again. And he started without saying a word to his young wife or his mother. When he reached his cabin in the forest, he found it covered with snow. Not a single footprint was to be seen. He went in. The cabin was empty, but the children's moccasins were there, and the sight of them made the father very sad. As he was hungry, he looked around for food. Near the fireplace, he saw 3 little mounds of ashes, the second smaller than the first, the third smaller than the second. He sat down and wondered what the mounds could mean, for he knew that they had been made by his wife as a sign for him, should he ever come to the cabin. At last he made up his mind that he had 3 children, and he determined to find them. My boys, thought he, are playful, and as they following their mother, they must have hacked trees. When the mother and her children were starting away, the elder boy said, we will mark the trail, so if our father ever thinks of us and comes back, he can follow us. The woman said, you mustn't do that. Your father will not come back. He has another wife and will never think of his children in the forest. But as they traveled along and played by the way, the boys hacked trees and shot arrows, and now their father was able to track them. He found that after a day's journey, his wife had camped. He saw the ashes of a fire, and on a tree nearby, 4 pairs of moccasins. He made a bundle of the moccasins, and the next morning, when he started off, he carried the bundle on his arm. Again he walked all day, and again he found the ashes of a fire and found 4 pairs of moccasins. He was without food and was tired. But the next morning he traveled on. Toward night, as before, he found the ashes of a fire and found 4 pairs of moccasins. He always put the moccasins in his bundle. About noon the next day, he saw in the distance a smoke as from a cabin. He hurried on, and as he came near the cabin, he saw 2 boys playing, running around and shooting. They saw him and went into the cabin to tell their mother that a man was coming. She looked out, recognized her husband, and told the boys to stay inside and keep away from the man. The man didn't know that the children were his own. He supposed they belonged to someone who lived in the cabin. As he was hungry, he decided to go in and ask for food. As he entered, the woman turned her back, but the elder boy knew his father, and running to him, put his hand on his knee. The father didn't recognize the child, so he gently pushed his hand away. The woman turned and saw the act. There, said she, I told you to keep away from him, that he didn't love you. Now the man recognized his wife and begged her to forgive him. He was so earnest and begged to her to forgive him. He was so earnest and begged so hard that the woman forgave him and brought to him his little daughter, whom he had never seen. Ever afterward, the man was true to his wife, who, though she looked exactly like a woman, was of the moose family. He never again left his home in the forest, and he and his family were happy. The end. Now, that was an interesting story.
Oh, yeah, that was interesting. Yeah.
Beware men who stray from home.
You know, well, back in the day, I think those Indians, they did take several wives. So there you go.
Some of them did, you know.
Yep. Yep. Chloe's in the house. Chloe's listening tonight. There you go. Secret Truth 2 is here. Visiting us. Elderberry's in the house too. Thank you all for coming tonight. It's a great night. Anyway, 2 great stories, I would say. As always.
No head chopping.
No head chopping. Linda.
No head chopping. I mean, you know, a head needs to roll at some point. No head chopping.
And there is Richard. Richard's in the house. And
hi, everybody.
Elderberry's here. That's right. But anyway, yeah, it's all good. Yeah. Dad left and we starved. There you go. I guess that's a good way to put it, right? Dad left, we starved.
So tonight.
Yeah, what do we got for tonight? I'm excited.
For tonight, I pulled cards already earlier.
Oh, you did? Oh, you're ahead of me.
Yeah, so I'm ahead of the curve, so to speak. And which is interesting, there are 4 cards tonight, and 3 of them are upside down. So, but I don't think we've had any of these cards in quite a while. So that's interesting. So here we go. Is Turtle was the first card I pulled.
We haven't entered.
And there goes my dog going crazy. Hang on.
Mary wins in the house. There you are. Mary wins.
Let me let the dog out before I do this.
Go right ahead.
I'm going to go up.
I pull up the turtle card. Everybody is piling in from the West Coast as we turn on their evening and our late night over here. And not everybody is a late night guru like we are out here. So we're doing the best we can. I hope everybody's doing good out there. We got some great cards. Like he said, he's got 4 cards tonight. That's kind of interesting. I know there's a full moon tonight. So if you're enjoying the full moon, cleansing your cards, your crystals, or your crystal balls, do all that tonight. Full moon on the horizon, or should I say in the sky somewhere. Anyway, take advantage of it. Summer season's right around the corner.
Oh yeah, but I've got a jacket on this evening and had the heater on earlier, so summer ain't here yet. The temps are in the 50s down here in the south. So for me, we've had a really nice spring. Where a couple of years ago, it was in the 90s by this time of the year. So, thank you, spirits. Global warming. But anyway, shame on me. Did I say that? Yeah, I said that out loud. Okay, Turtle, number 10 in the book, page 77. Turtle is the Mother Earth sign. Turtle, great mother, feed my spirit, clothe my heart, that I may serve you too. In Native American teachings, turtle is the oldest symbol for planet Earth. It is the personification of goddess energy and the eternal mother, from which our lives evolve. We are born of the womb of the earth, and to her soil our bodies will return. In honoring the earth, we are asked by Turtle to be mindful of the cycle of give and take, to give back to the mother as she has given to us. Turtle has a shell which is similar to the protection that Earth has employed for centuries as her body has been defiled. Mother Earth's protection has come in the form of earth changes, new plant growth, the creation of new land masses by volcanoes, and climate alterations. Like Turtle, you also have shields that protect you from hurt and envy, jealousy, and the unconsciousness of others. Now, I got to stop and interject this, the unconsciousness of others. That's a really important thing, right? Well, it's always important. But there are folks who are doing things unconsciously and they affect you. And so, and you go, well, wait a minute. So, you need to be aware of these things. Turtle teaches you though its habit patterns, through its habit pattern, how to use protection. If you are bothered by the actions or words of others, it is time to go inside yourself and honor your feelings. If you are attacked, it is time to give a warning snap. Now, rather than continue reading the rest, I'm going to the upside down turtle. Pulling the turtle card in the reverse means that Mother Earth is calling you to connect in some way. If you have become flippant and forgotten to place waste in its proper place instead of throwing it out of the car window, she is calling. If you have felt alone in your time of need, she is calling. If you have been struggling frantically or have little to eat, or if you have desired a child and see no pregnancy in the near future, she is your medicine. Use it. You are not alone. Ever. You are a child of the earth. All acts of pleasure, joy, and abundance are given by the mother of the creative love and force. Use her energy and use her energy to aid you, and you will be healed enough to share this energy with others. This idea of a turtle helplessly trying to right itself after it is flipped on its upside down can also symbolize contrary turtle. You are not a victim and you are not helpless. No matter how much it may seem like this is the case in your present situation. To right the ill-dignified turtle, you need only list the things you are grateful for. To right yourself, all you need to do is list the things you are grateful for. And from that grateful place in your heart, look for the abundance of the alternatives that Mother Earth gives us. That's good medicine right there. Don't forget that you're never, ever alone. Now, the next one is Weasel upside down. Its number is 33 in the card thingy. And again, upside down, just interesting. We've had a bunch of upside down cards recently, but they're not giving you negative medicine, I mean, to right yourself if you feel upside down, list the things you're grateful for. Weasel is stealth. Weasel, weasel, weasel. Who's in the hen house now? If I were to ask you, you'd say it was the cow. Weasel has an incredible amount of energy and ingenuity. Yet it is a difficult totem to have. It is not without significance that ermine or weasel pelt is worn by royalty. Weasel ears hear what is really being said. This is a great ability. Weasel eyes see beneath the surface of a situation to know the many ramifications of an event. This too is a rare gift. The chief sent Weasel to the enemy camp to smoke them for power. What are the medicines of our enemies? The chiefs asked Weasel upon its return. Weasel never failed to give an accurate account of the enemy's numbers, strengths, and weaknesses. It was Weasel who tearfully told the original people of the coming of the white boat people. And we just talked about that earlier. These brothers have strange new medicine, said Weasel. They will tell us that to live the way they do is wrong. They will tell us that to live the way we do is wrong. They will confuse us with their talking bark. They have stolen thunder from Skyfather and placed it in their weapons. They have no respect for the animal brothers and sisters, and they make their thunder speak to the animals and kill them. They will make the thunder speak to us also. Their numbers are too many to count, and these white brothers will steal everything from us but our spirits. The great dark shadow of the ravenous bird of death has fallen over the people. Now, we just talked about that a little while ago. So now the upside down Weasel. Is contrary Weasel in your cards? If so, look out for intrigue. Someone may be using covert tactics to weasel into the hen house. Perhaps you should lock your doors and dress your teenager like a nun. Or perhaps you may be lying to yourself about something you know to be true. This can be a lie on any level. For instance, storming the refrigerator at 3 o'clock in the morning and telling yourself that no one will miss the half-eaten pie you ate. Don't slink away just because you can. Honesty to self and to others is of the utmost importance. Hey, you want me to read that again? Honesty to the self and to others is of utmost importance. Honesty. Another message of reversed Weasel is to acknowledge why you have been doubting your own feelings. Weasel upright observes all actions, feelings, and situations with keen senses. But in the contrary, those abilities of observations are dulled until confusion sets in. So in other words, where you used to be able to notice things and be alert, you're not. When you don't know how you feel or what is occurring around you, doubt becomes the barrier to your progress. Then you may find a bit of paranoia sweeping into your life. If you want to right the situation, start by shaking the dullness out of your life and out of your head and start observing the obvious. No one can fool you if you watch your step. Honor your knowing, seek the hidden reasons, and use discretion in the process. So there are a lot of folks are being fooled, and some folks are going into their turtle shells. But by doing so, that you have to look at your situation and go, Number 21. And Weasel is telling you that your senses have been dulled. So, and now the next one, upside down, is Owl. Deception. Owl, magic, omens, time and space. Does the truth emerge? Casting out deception. Silent flight, the sacred medicine bird. Now, there's a lot here to read about Owl, but I'm only going to read the first paragraph, and then I'm going to go right into the upside downing. Owl medicine is symbolically associated with clairvoyance, astral projection, and magic, both white and black. Owl is called the night eagle on several medicine wheels used by Amerindian teachers. Traditionally, owl sits in the east, the place of illumination. Since time immemorial, humanity has been afraid of the night, the dark, and the unseen, waiting fearfully for the first crack of morning light. Conversely, night is owl's friend. Owl is oftentimes the medicine of sorcerers and witches. If owl is your medicine, be careful. Is it any wonder that in many cultures, owl is the symbol for wisdom? This is because owl can see that which others cannot, which is the essence of true wisdom. While others are deceived, owl sees and knows what is there. Now, the converse. If you have owl upside down in your cards, you have been greatly deceived by either yourself or another or other entities. Perhaps witchcraft or black magic is being used against you, or maybe you are using witchcraft or sorcery to aid you when you should be praying and asking the Great Spirit for guidance. That's interesting. The message is to befriend the darkness inside you. Look deeply, and soon the bright light of dawn will illuminate you. Then ask yourself what you are in the dark about. They want me to read that again because I messed it up. Look deeply, and soon the bright light of dawn will illuminate you. Then ask yourself what you are in the dark about. How and by whom are you being deceived? Have you lied to yourself about someone or something? Now, the lying to yourself. There are a lot of things that we lie to ourselves about. Well, this will be okay, or well, I don't need to do, or something, something, something. Those are the lies we tell ourselves. Are you being greatly deceived or just slightly deceived? Owl tells you to keep an eye on your property and your loved ones. Remember that owl is always asking, who? Now that's interesting. In two cards, they're telling us to be aware. You know, turtle's going inside to check it, to look inside yourself and to look. Owl is saying the same thing. Are you being deceived? What's Weasel doing? Weasel saying, your ears have been dulled. So whatever's going on, you or us or something, the message is really clear. We are being deceived and our ears are dulled. So, and then the last one that popped up, I was surprised, and we have had this card before, is Squirrel. And it's right side up. And its number is 26 in the book. And Squirrel is all about gathering. Squirrel, you have gathered nuts by the score, exactly predicting if you'll need some more. Teach me to take no more than I need, trusting the great mystery to harvest the seed. Squirrel teaches you to plan ahead for the winter when the trees are bare. Squirrel medicine can come in many forms, as this furry critter is very diverse in nature. The erratic behavior of squirrel has bested many a forlorn hunter. And it thus stands to reason as there are many benefits to being able to circle around the branch at lightning speed. This erratic behavior of squirrel can also get nerve-wracking. Trying to calm them down enough to accomplish something may drive you nuts. The gathering power of squirrel medicine is a great gift. It teaches you how to gather and to store your energy for times of need. It teaches you to gather and store energy. Now, think about that. It ain't about storing rocks and nuts and things, it's storing your own energy for times of need. Always be prepared. In today's world of changing times and fortunes, it is the wise person. Again, there's Owl. It is the wise person who prepares for the future. Our prophecies have all spoken of the end of the millennium and the changes to come. Now, that's interesting. Two cards talk about the future end times, okay? If Squirrel is scurried into your cards today, it may be that you are being told to honor your future by readying yourself for change. Interesting. So the other cards are telling you you're being deceived. You need to look inside yourself. You need to look into the darkness to find out what it is. And Squirrel's telling you to gather your energy for changes to come. Now, how about that for 4 cards tonight? What a heck of a message. It's kind of like really throwing it out at you. You know, like, pay attention. Wow, that's interesting.
Yes, yes, it is. Very interesting.
Now, somebody else sees something else in the cards, you know, I'm open, but man, oh man, whoo-wee. You're being deceived, look inside oneself. And, you know, as the turtle, you know, there are a lot of things being slung around, names and things, and you're no good and all that kind of stuff. And like turtle, you just got to, you know, forget about it.
Yep.
It ain't worth getting in a fight about.
Not worth getting in a fight, that's for sure. Well, we've used up our 2 hours. We're coming right up on our 2-hour mark. 4 cards tonight, 2 stories, and 1 hour of information of Blue Jacket stuff. So quite the interesting night tonight. We dished it out. We didn't gab a lot. Oh my gosh, what a night that is.
We didn't gab a lot.
No, we got right down to business, down and dirty, I tell you.
And we've been, and you know, I mean, you know, I don't think we've set a record, but we have with the cards. But you know, 2 stories and 4 cards. We done good tonight.
Did good. A
pat on the back, ha ha ha.
Yes, everybody's saying that too. Very good card rating tonight. There you go. You got your praises right there. Look at that.
And here's the thing, folks. If you say it was a good card reading tonight, then it means you should pay attention. You know, just not for me or whatever, but you know, the future is in the cards, and just look around yourself and ask you if the cards have been telling you, you know, to be aware and to, you know, so, you know, pay attention to the cards.
Absolutely. Do you got a show tonight?
Boy, they're really strong tonight, let me tell you. But anyway, I can just feel them like a tingle, tingle, tingle. But anyway, so, but yeah, probably, you know, I'm drinking coffee and I'm awake, so I'll probably do a show. Yeah.
Yep, exactly. I know some of the late night people are just getting home. Chloe, she's getting home. She's going to be all ready to tune in when you tune on, right? But anyway, so it's all good. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. It was a great time. Next week, I'm going to do Tecumseh. Yeah, and he was a seer for sure. So there you go. It's going to be a good week. And don't forget to tune in on Saturday, where we're going to have another great night of Trinity of Truth on the Milky Way Soul Tribe. And of course, then I will be on Nina the Mystic's channel on Sunday, where we're going to be talking about those red heifers that they're going to cook up and make into ashes so they can build that next temple or something like that. But we're going to find all about that on Sunday on Sin Day Live, Nina's channel.
The third temple.
Yeah, the third temple. Or, well, if they start that war, it might be the Dust Temple.
Yeah, and just since you brought it up, you know, you're going to see it in the news here, but these folks that the cards are warning us about tonight, you know, they have to make sure that the apocalypse happens. They have to see the end of the Bible through. And so they must do the third temple. They got to do the heifers. They have to make all of these things come true. So, we just need to sit back and watch this stupid show, and be aware, don't be fooled.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love you all. Thank you.
Yep. It's going to be an interesting time, and the cards are not lying. So pay attention, like I said, pay attention. Yeah, well, Mary wins says love y'all, love wins, and it really does. That's what we talked about last Saturday on the show. It was talking about, you gotta get that love frequency going. So anyway, that's what and follow your heart and find your inner truth, and that's what it always boils down to. And with that, well, we're gonna sign off. And remember, everybody, go out and do something nice for somebody. Find that inner truth. Go search down these stories. Learn something. That's when we pass to the other side. That's all we'll have to take with us is information, all the experiences that we had. And when we get there, we can sit there and review all of that and take it in and say, wow, those were good times, weren't they?
And it's all about high frequency.
That's right.
Raise your frequency, so that when you do pass, you go with a high frequency, not some low.
That's absolutely right. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. It helps the YouTube algorithm. And with all of that, you go out and be the frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love y'all. Peace, everybody.
Bye.